Namaskar, Adab. Someone said that dance is the hidden language of the soul. Today we are here to celebrate this idea, to do some soul searching, to understand this hidden language that can bring so much joy to our lives. We are delighted to have with us, on the occasion of the International Dance Day, the eminent danceress Sharon Lowen. Sharon, wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
In many ways, you're really an amalgam of the idea of international in the idea of dance itself. But before we uncover your stories and your insights, what is the significance of having an International Dance Day at all?
It's very significant. It started, I think, in 1982, and so many countries do not have a dance policy or mention of dance. And this was started by an NGO connected to the UN, so that dance education and appreciation and exploration of dance by people who aren't directly involved would be something to be celebrated. And it really has expanded over the years. It's such an exciting day. I mean, dancers love it. There's an international message every year. And so many events, open classes, discussions, and certainly here in Delhi, we're all off doing performances in schools, and it's a very thrilling time, really.
I think any occasion to celebrate something so beautiful is worth its while in any case.
It is.
But I think it also plays a significant role, like you just mentioned, to center stage something that that is so important and so central to our lives. How do you think dance, I mean, perhaps it'll seem like an obvious question to you, but do enlighten our viewers about why is dance such an important part of our lives?
Well, dance came before verbal language. It's a communication. It's something that uses your actual body, whereas in music, you have an instrument, whereas in dance, your body is your instrument. Everyone dances. At some point, it's a part of us. And we all know about 7 intelligences. Kinetic is one. And the fact that some people communicate through movement. Things that you understand through this expression are not the same as things you understand purely intellectually or, you know, by study. As an artist, you're able to create something that's an intangible meaning, intangible heritage, a communication. It exists in that moment, so one is always aware of impermanence, and yet the memory lasts. I think everyone remembers performances that they've seen that they will never forget.
Right.
It's a part of you forever.
Absolutely.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah. Also, I think what is quite beautiful about whether it's music or dance, I mean, the fact that it allows you to imagine, that it allows you to interpret in myriad ways what perhaps language may or may not allow you to. So, how does that play out in dance? I mean, abstraction or even abhinay, or the various ways in which you communicate using your body.
Well, it's interesting that dance, of course, it's movement, and yet you can have dance that is purely abstractions of the body, which is using energy, time, the space that you're in, and can create all kinds of understandings that are absolutely non-narrative and not connected to a literal meaning. And then one of the greatest beauties of Indian classical dance is that the dancer gets to be an actor. And so we're using our body, we're moving, there's all the control, all the rhythm, and yet we're able to bring to life and go beyond what is in a text. The text is a starting point. And then obviously if it was just the Amrachitrakatha of the story, that would be nice, but you don't need the dance. It would be there. So what we get to do is to take the text, internalize it, and then bring it out and bring it to life. So there are so many things and directions in dance. I mean, dance can be entertainment, dance can be transformational, and everything in between.
Right. That's beautiful. I mean, you've really laid out the space that the spectrum that it can really cover. But you know, you mentioned how additionally it plays out in Indian classical dance, and I'm sure this is something that comes to you very often. Your own journeys of being a dancer. I know that you started out with some education in fine arts when you were in the US, where you originally come from. But you know, why this transition?
There are so many aspects to how it is. You know, for some people, when you say, how did you end up where you are, they say, oh, I saw this, I was inspired and followed that. In my journey, it was more of a very wonderful and rich tapestry of exposures and experiences growing up. I grew up, first of all, in Detroit, Michigan, which was a fantastic city for dance.
I see.
We were on the Salihurok circuit. Every year as a child, I saw Bolshoi, Moiseyev, Uday Shankar, African dance, folk, classical, Japanese, everything. We also had a tremendous theater and children's theater department. It's also, of course, the home of the labor movement, so there was a great deal of politics. And it's a city that gave a doctorate to Rukmini Devi, you know, way back, I think maybe in the 60s. So I was fortunate to grow up with an exposure to not only dance, theater, and music that was Western, but also international. And when I was 10, we became very close friends with a couple that was a sculptor from Baroda, Narendra Patel.
I see.
And there were many aspects. There were also Indian literature, Bengali writers were on the bookshelf at home. And when I eventually came to India, I came on a Fulbright scholarship. I wanted to come to India, and I had already spent 2 summers traveling in Europe.
I see.
I had actually also gone to Mexico. I had at my university, I had realized that within one school, one college, I wouldn't be able to take all the things I wanted. And so I petitioned the Board of Governors to let me create my own honors major.
I see.
And that way I could take ethnomusicology in the School of Music. I could take all of the South Asian history and things that were obviously in the School of Literature, Fine Arts, but I could take Arts of Asia, I could take, and there wasn't any Asian dance or music. So I took everything that was offered in theater and in dance, and I did philosophy of science, and I just was able to create a wonderful program that was a super
really
foundation.
fantastic.
I was very lucky. And then I wound up doing a master's in dance before I came to India. Another thing, because we all, I think, realize that whatever happens, it's always just fine. So I was delayed a year because it was just after the Bangladesh war. India made a tighter policy for students and scholars coming. And so my coming was delayed 1 year. I came as a Fulbrighter. I was here for a year. I extended another year. I was learning Manipuri. And then in my second year, I just took an introduction to Odissi, just to know academically.
I think I'm going to have you pause
Please.
here, because I'm also very curious to know why Manipuri, because typically one would have assumed a Bharatanatyam or a Odissi or Kuchipudi, but Manipuri is not a typical sort of a choice for someone who's coming from outside of India.
That's true. Actually, my exposure before coming to India was only through Indians. I wasn't even really aware. And when I was at university, someone, little notice, Manipuri classes. And that was Minati Roy, Minati Basu Roy, and she and her sisters had been performers, had been trained by the guru from Shantiniketan, and she was getting a second master's in Ann Arbor and was teaching. I knew of Manipuri, as we all would know, just from seeing the pictures of the raw skirt in a book. I knew what it was. And it was an opportunity to learn Manipuri. I personally, my style of movement is very lyrical. And so whether it's in modern dance, Humphrey Lamone, which is graceful and flowing, or Manipuri, it suited me. And I loved learning with her. And I used to perform for Saraswati Puja, for Tagore's birthday. One time when I had to do lights for a modern dance concert, when there was a program, I actually taught a motley group of Indian women from different communities. An amazing experience, trying to get people together and to rehearse and to do it.
So that clearly it's therefore clear why you came and decided to do Manipuri.
When I actually, though, I wanted to come to India. That was number one, not to learn Manipuri. I wanted to come to India, and I wanted to come with a cultural entree. I did not want to come as a tourist. The way that I could afford to come to India would be on a fellowship. I thought, well, I can continue my Manipuri, which is something that can inform whatever I'm doing in the arts when I return. I was not planning to become a professional Indian dancer. That would be absurd. And even when I was applying, I thought, because I'd done a great deal of puppetry, I thought, gee, maybe I should apply in puppetry. But I thought, whatever I would do in terms of study of traditional puppetry would be something that I could do only a lecture demonstration, rather than actually moving forward with any kind of creative work. So I decided I'll come to do Manipuri, it will inform what I do later. But when I came, again, because I knew the Indian community, I knew that after I'd been here even for 2 years, that what I was able to learn would give me 5 minutes between the Bhangra and the bride's pageant in a function. It wasn't enough to really, do something of quality. So then I thought, well, it would be good to stay. So
after year one, you moved into Odissi.
I didn't move. I took permission from my Manipuri guru. I said, if it affects my style, I'll stop. I only want to know enough Odissi because I know nothing of Hasta Abhinaya and what people think of as Indian dance.
Yeah.
And so I just want to know a little bit.
I can't wait to sort of ask you, I can't wait to get there about how Kelu Babu happened, and
Oh
you know,
my God.
because that I'm sure was a very,
Well,
very significant,
He
transformative.
Kelu Babu came to teach a workshop at Tribhuvan Kala Sangam where I was doing Manipuri.
Right, and Manipuri you were doing with Guru
With Guru
Singhajit
Singhajit Singh, yes. And I mean, his Manipuri is so perfect and very fine that I'm very, very grateful for the quality, you know, of his teaching.
But Kelu Babu came to Triveni.
Well, Kelu Babu came. I watched the workshop one year, and I did not have any intention to study it. I was not interested in being a dance collector. The next year when he came, it was just before I was going to be returning to the U.S. And I thought, let me just have an introduction, just to understand some of these principles. When I started learning, because of my background, 17 years of ballet and modern, teaching at university, having learned Manipuri and coordinating different body parts, I learned very quickly. And so Kelu Babu said that I learned faster than anyone he'd ever taught.
Wow.
In 2 weeks, he had me help teach the beginning class. Then when one guru's daughter was learning a Pallavi, Savri Pallavi, he said, you learn it with her. And so in 2 months, 2.5 months, I learned Mangalacharan, Batu, and Savri Pallavi. And then he insisted that I get a costume made. And I said, I don't need a costume. I'm not an Odissi dancer. I'm just learning it. He said, no, if you're learning it, you have to perform it. So he insisted that I make a small recording and that I have the costume. And he had Mrs. Shudrani's daughter, Kavita, go with me to help with the sari. And that summer, I went back to the States, taught at University of Michigan, taught Manipuri, and gave a program of Manipuri and Odissi. And then I came back after the summer and taught at the American School for 3 years.
I see.
It's important that the great deal of the movement is with the torso going side to side, all right? It's not as sharp as a jazz isolation. It's soft, but you keep your hips steady, shoulders directly over your hip bones, and you just shift side to side. Slight contraction on one, slight extension on the other. So, ready, starting to the right, and ta, iti, naka, tini, ta. Slowly, T. 1, 2, 3, double it, ta, iti, naka, tini. Relax your shoulders.
During those 3 years, I continued with my Manipuri. I also did Odissi whenever I could. And I also, at the same time that I started doing Odissi, I started doing Mayurbhanj Chow.
I see.
That was also something that I kind of resisted.
But it's not, I mean, that's the other sort of the stereotype that you seem to be really a stereotype breaker in many ways. Because
Why?
even Mayurbhanj Chow, was it sort of traditionally even associated with women being sort of...
No, of course not. But I had, my background in ballet and modern dance meant that I had the physical training to do everything that's required in Chow, even though it's a very different way of movement. So I would see Western theater exponents come and take Chow for a couple of weeks and be so thrilled with what they'd learned because it's very useful for theater workers. And as we all know, if you're in theater, you need to have movement, you need to have movement training, but you're not likely to have the sophisticated training that a dancer has.
Right. Yes.
So I thought, well, if theater people come and are so thrilled in just a couple of weeks, and I'm here, even if I just do a little, it'll be worthwhile.
Right. Tell us a little bit about Chow. I mean, I know it's just a stunning form to look at, but in terms of a practice, in terms of doing it, what are some sort of stylistic characteristics or something which really distinguishes it from the other dance forms, the other classical dance forms?
So much, so much. It's wonderful. First of all, I was absolutely blessed. My guru, Krishna Chandra Nayak, he reminds me of my grandfather, and he was so kind and dear and wonderful. In Mayurbhanj Chow, all of the movement comes from your core, from your torso. So it's all controlled from the middle. When you're watching it, you're seeing legs go up in the air.
Right.
But it's not a limb movement. It's actually from here that everything starts, which is very similar to Western modern dance, that part. Then the other thing is you're communicating with your whole body, which is similar to Manipuri. Because rather than emphasis on face or hands or separate body movements, everything is coordinated. Everything moves together. It's very lyrical. And actually, Chow is kind of like the cousin brother of Odissi.
I see.
So if you think of your typical triple bend in Odissi, which is so feminine, there you are very gracefully like this. But if you just broaden the chest and you widen your foot just a couple of inches, you have a warrior pose, you have Dharan. It's the same triple bend. And then as you move and the torso, you have so much that's very similar to Odissi. And in fact, if you are doing Chow and you're doing a female piece, so like I've choreographed Nadi, because that would be for a production I've done, because you don't have many female parts because it's done by men. So if I'm doing Nadi, or if you're doing, say, a female thing.
It's also an interesting juxtaposition.
Yes, you add in a song. It actually, because the transition to Najni and then to Gotipura, the dance that's done by boys, where it's like that, you know, and then you soften it and you get more classical. So it's a very clear transition from the feminine in the Chow to the feminine in the Odissi, and the strength. They're quite close.
Chow has it has a masculine demeanor to it. I mean, not that one wants to necessarily typecast any dance form, but it just maybe because you just end up seeing more men doing it.
You do see men, and it's very strong. And but you know, one time I was very pleased. I don't know how many years ago, 20, 30, maybe 30 years ago by now. I met some people from Bengal. They said they'd visited in Mayurbhanj, and they said they saw some girls being trained. And they asked, this is unusual, it's a male form, you're training women. They said, yes, but there was an American who came here and danced, and we saw that a woman can do it.
I see.
And so actually that, and when I went, actually in, I think it was 76 really, when my guru, when I went to Baripada, and he had me dance, he was 76, and I said, Guruji, I'm definitely going to make mistakes. I don't want to dance because my errors would reflect on you. And he said, no, I want you to do it. So I danced in Baripada on this rough ground and everything. And after that, it really changed the attitude. And there's a lot of things. I introduced Mayurbhanj Chow to North America when I danced at an international dance festival in Hawaii.
I see.
In 78. There had never been Chow seen there. And in fact, very experienced dancers who knew Indian dance, the Joneses, they thought I was doing some kind of Oriental khichdi. And fortunately, Sunil Kotari and Mohan Kokar were there. They said, no, it's proper, she's doing it right.
I see. It's interesting that, you speak about your engagement with Chow so passionately because
I love it.
I think to the world at large, we see you as this absolutely divine Odissi dancer. So I nearly forgotten and got carried away with your exposition on Chow. So Odissi was your calling, was it?
No, I love them all. I'm sorry. I was told many times, you can't do 3 styles, you must choose one, because otherwise people don't have you in a box and then you'll be nowhere.
Right.
And it's just like asking a mother, which child do you love most? I continued where I had opportunities to grow and to develop.
Okay.
With Chow, I enjoyed not only, Chow is, as a soloist, takes a great deal of stamina, and it's very difficult to do a solo program.
Right.
So I've done productions for Doordarshan, Jeevan Rekha, Ashok Ballet, with my student, a Chow dancer who came to me to learn Odissi, Gopal Dubey. So he actually and I collaborated. He pulled together the dancers from Saraikela. He's a Saraikela Chow dancer, which I'd also studied, and from Mayurbhanj. And then I'd choreographed a couple of productions, which we did at Kamani, and Doordarshan, a couple of productions. To get together all of the Chow people to spend the time there is very difficult. And gradually, I mean, I've been in India for over 43 years.
My God.
So, so the thing about Odissi, of course, number one, Kelu Babu is, as everyone knows, not only a great guru, a great artist, and so generous, and he opened up a world, not only of beautiful dance, but an entree to the Abhinaya, and that turned out to be my forte.
There is something about Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra which suggests that, the man was his art form. I mean, that you couldn't separate, you couldn't think of him separately from his, and I think that kind of an inspiration to even to see someone like that, and of course, added to that the fact that he was your guru, it must have been an incredibly special experience.
It was, because when I hear, obviously, people who've seen performances, and you remember it, and then for those of us who studied, we saw this daily. And so you see the performance and that creativity. What we get to see is not only those items broken down, deconstructed, put together, we also get to see, for instance, if he's teaching 15 girls in a semicircle, and then he's taught us all how to do something, and then he'll then do an imitation of each one of us. Each one how they're doing it as he's trying to get us to do it. Or I remember, if it's like showing a walk, because as everyone knows, he was so masculine, and yet when he portrayed the feminine, it was so perfect.
Right.
Better than a female can do. So we're like ducks behind the mother duck. He's walking, showing how to walk, and we're all kind of like awkward ducklings behind. It was just wonderful. And then the thing is that in Guru Shishya Parampara, it is not going for an hour for a class.
Right.
So when we're staying there, taking part in the daily puja, seeing how things are done, all of the things in the village, studying in Kathak. It's funny, one time my daughter, she played, she was Bideshini Bahu in a 52-episode TV series. It was Bengali, shot in Orissa. And she was a teenager. She would complain that, oh my goodness, you know, they wake me up so early for tea, and the bed is like that, and this is like that. And then I say, sweetheart, when I studied, I didn't have a mattress, and I couldn't get tea when I wanted, and this and that. And she would be like, oh my God, you know, you put up with such things?
Right.
But we weren't putting up, we were loving it.
Right.
Because we were with Kelu Babu.
Right. Yes. And also I think part of the Guru Shishya Parampara has to be this struggle, you know, this hardship. I think it just brings in a lot more. I can't think of an English word, but I think the word junoon is very, very appropriate for that.
Yes.
But, you know, because it really, really has you internalize what it is that you're seeking as an artist, I would
But
think.
you know, you don't, I mean, I never thought of anything as a hardship, because you're doing everything by choice.
Right.
You want to be there, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone, when you're young, in every career, it's not that it's a hardship, it's that it's a challenge.
Right.
And that it's what makes you grow, and how you discover your strengths and your abilities.
Today is International Dance Day. Welcome back. We were talking about the challenges and the general rigors of to get to a point where you absolutely enjoy what it is that you're doing by choice. Sharon, I want to ask you, because several of these performing art forms are, you know, they are soloist traditions, or in the case of Chow, you even do it with in a group. But it calls for a certain kind of an approach, an individuality, solitude to be able to think about what it is that you want to do. You know, so there are many other variables, there are many other elements to your creative expression. How do you think that is different from, say, the background that you'd come from in the context of Indian dance?
I think that everyone needs to have a mentor. And of course, first of all, I mean, what is a guru? I mean, there are teachers. Everyone has teachers. They're called gurus. But a guru is more than a teacher. They're a master teacher.
Right.
And they're more than a master teacher. They're also your mentor.
Right.
So that you're learning from them an approach to art.
Correct.
And so many other things. And there's an individual relationship. So in that sense, I would say that in modern dance, I also had gurus and had very close relationships with my teachers.
You know, in a sense, it was like what you were mentioning about
Yes.
your experience of being with Kelu Babu and how it was not just that 1 hour of
Yes.
engaging in a class, that it extends
Yes.
much, you know, it becomes very
Yeah.
much your life. Maybe not even a part of your life as much as a large part of your life.
Yes.
So, you know, what I'm trying to get at is that how does one get to a point where you enjoy this process? Because it's not easy.
But you have to start out enjoying it, because, you know, there's the great quote from Agnes de Mille when a young dancer said, you know, ma'am, like, should I be a dancer? And the answer is, if you have to ask the question, the answer is no. Absolutely. Dance is not something that, in a sense, that you choose. Basically, it chooses you. When I was 13, I decided I would not be a dancer because I loved dancing, but I loved so many other things. And I felt that dancing was the one thing, and I think music also, that really is jealous, does not allow you to do other things. You have to devote all of your time. So where is the time for the literature and the philosophy and the art and the creating and the traveling and the seeing and the doing if you have to be putting in all that practice? So when I was 13, I said, okay, I like my dance, but I'm not going to be a dancer. I thought, you know, I'll do theater administration, I'll do my puppetry, I'll do this and that and the other thing. Even when I came to India, it was not my intention. It was simply the entree to continue. I was not planning to be a Manipuri dancer, and I was planning that when I went back to the US, I might be a dancer to earn a living to do my puppetry, or like Jim Henson from Muppets offered me a job if I didn't, you know, go away. I wasn't sure, but I loved the process of learning. I just loved doing it. It's so thrilling and wonderful. You're so alive when you're moving, when you're discovering, when you're developing your abilities. And then if you get the opportunity to share it, then you feel it's not just an indulgence. So after I'd been in India for 5 years, I said I must go back to the US because it should not be just a vanity. And so I went back to the US and I had opportunities to do more than 200 school performances. I wore out costumes, Manipuri and Odissi. I did concerts, I taught, and then I felt I'm entitled to come back to learn more. But the only reason I'm in India is that I decided when my daughter was school age, I have to be in one place or the other now. And I said, I'll stay as long as I'm welcome and doing something worthwhile. And I bless you and everyone for making it possible that what I love to do and share has been so well received, so that it made it possible for me to keep doing it here.
You know, you just mentioned in the course of our conversation that it's a wonderful thing to be also be able to share it.
It's all only about sharing,
isn't it? And the sheer thrill of that interaction is really, it's sometimes that's hard to share or articulate. You know, what you experience.
It's like wanting to give someone a birthday present.
Correct.
And before I go on stage, I always feel, before I enter, I feel so grateful for these people who are giving up their time to be there so that I can offer them this gift. And I know that I can only give them what I can give at this moment, that it's not the best, it's not perfect, but it's whatever at this moment I can do.
having said that, there is also a concern, especially in the context of dance and the classical dance forms, whether it is Odissi or Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi, about how dancers in today's time are going through a tough time, or maybe a tough patch, in terms of performance opportunities, in terms of patronage, and in terms of how to look at look at it as a comfortable career option. I mean, no performing art can be a comfortable career option, really.
Yes.
But it's only fair that if you want to also make it a livelihood option, that you should have that option. So, what is your take on this? How do you feel about this?
Well, of course, it's a huge subject, which we could go on, and there have been many seminars. But the thing is that it's never been easy. It has never been easy anywhere. It's no easier in the West than it is here. It may be easier here. I think there's a lot more patronage now in India than there is in the West. I remember years ago when I did a lectem in Missouri at the Staff College, I said, yes, classical dancers, we have our problems, and they're different for different people. But what's more important is that people, say in Purulia, should get water so that when it's time to do their annual festival, they can take the time to do their rehearsals and maintain the tradition. I think it's more important to put the energy into helping the sustenance for the traditional forms that need, that kind of government support. The challenges for a classical Indian dancer are that earning a living from being a classical dancer, first of all, to earn a living as an artist, a musician, a dancer, a painter, you have to be absolutely excellent as for a starter. Whereas if you're an engineer, you can be a very mediocre engineer. You got a job and you'll earn a living. So when you're spending 10 years of preparation to become an artist, you don't know whether or not you'll really be that difference between good and excellent, that you could do that.
Right.
Now, if you are excellent, even that, of course, is no guarantee whatsoever that you'll get support.
Yes.
But everywhere in the world, you have to do other things. You teach, and you do other kinds of collaborations. There's very few people, and it's not always because of the level of the art that one is a commercial success. You have to decide when you're going into it, what are you doing?
Right.
And I would not advise anyone to take up dance as a career. But if that's what they really love and they do it, they can make it work. And I feel that one of the advantages in my career is that somehow, after many years of dancing, that I'm happy that I can be an inspiration, that you can be a respected artist without patronage, without having the hierarchy of family background. There's no batchmates or brothers or uncles or this or that, no sugar daddies, no caste community support. It's only on the basis that I performed and people appreciated it, and that was it.
Yeah. But I mean, these challenges that you share and that you say, I mean, there are different ways of resolving them or addressing them. But what is it like in the international scenario with the other kinds of dance forms? What are some of the dance forms that are really thriving, let's say? Is the Russian ballet doing well, or what is it?
I think every dance is thriving because everyone has a vitality. You have, at times, certain things will have wonderful groups and gurus, but you've got ballet, you've got all kinds of ballet. Then you have like the clogging and the river dance. You have even things like flamenco. And then the contemporary dance, contemporary dance is something that is actually evolved from modern dance, which broke away from ballet, to go into a kind of abstract minimalism and intellectual art, to now contemporary dance is a dance that embraces everything.
Right. Have you seen anything in the recent past, or in something that has excited you from somewhere else, which you feel that you'd like to see more?
I've seen the dance from every part of the world, and I love it all. Recently, I gave a series of lectures on 100 years of American dance, and it was so exciting to do more background and to look at the things that came from Africa and from Europe and how they combined, how they became Broadway and movie dance and ballet and just all of the things that are so exciting. I mean, I love being able to take text and go deeply into abhinaya. But I love every kind of movement. I love movement that's aerial, that flies. I love, when my friend Naresh Kapuria had the Belgian bells coming down in Trafalgar Square, and Kathak dancers trained by Kumadini Lakia were performing. There's just, it's just like dancers are dancing in my head when you ask what do I like.
That's the other exciting thing I think that's happening, the kinds of collaborations, the kind of choreography that, I think that's the brighter side of how things are opening up, isn't it?
I've, for Shivratri, I've worked on productions that have combined Odissi, Bharatanatyam, and Kathak. And done them in Khajuraho at a pilgrimage site, working with wonderful dancers, collaborating with Kamalini Dutt, and doing things. I've done things with, combining chow. One thing is, though, I don't do fusion, because the integrity of every art is such that it should stand on its own.
How do you define fusion? I think there's a lot of sort of blur around that as well.
Well, you see, when you're doing contemporary dance, you have a full right to do anything. You can walk on your hands, you can do roller skating. When you're doing something, let's say if someone is doing Odissi, has studied Odissi, and is using it in contemporary dance, you can say it's Odissi based, but you can't call it Odissi. Right. When it goes beyond the parameters of a particular form. And so I'm very fortunate, because if I've been asked to choreograph something, I can actually choose the form. So if I did something once on a Sarojini Naidu poem, I felt like actually it needs to be contemporary dance. But today, all of the dance forms are vital. They're all alive. And one thing that is wonderful is that the dance is available to everybody. You can be a wonderful ballet dancer and be Japanese or Black American or Indian, and these great forms no longer belong to an ethnic group.
But there's also a great concern about how Bollywood, the famous film industry of India, is usurping a lot of the dance forms. Not really usurping, but creating a new language, which is here to stay, of course, but it's also hugely popular. And do you worry that it might sideline or marginalize?
There's nothing to worry. Look, Bollywood is fine. The problem with Bollywood is it wonderful, fun, great dance, or is it vulgar and not good quality dance? From the beginning with Bollywood, you had Kathak. You used to, same thing with the music. Yeah. You had beautiful ragas that were used, and you can bring them into a film form. When I danced in a Telugu film by K. Vishwanath, I took an 18.5-minute piece and it was condensed down to 6 or 7 minutes. It did not lose its integrity. Kelu Babu choreographed it. Bhubaneswara Mishra, who did the music, was thrilled to have for the first time such orchestration, 20 violins, to play. So you can do wonderful dance in Bollywood, you can draw on classical, but you see, you can see classical dance that's terrible, and you can see Bollywood that's terrible. The form doesn't matter. It's the content that matters. What are you communicating? What are you doing?
Right.
You know, and otherwise the forms are all, they're all rich. They all have a lot to offer. And another thing is classical dance, by definition, whether it's Western ballet or Japanese or Indian,
Right.
they are not something that is going to appeal to everybody.
Yes.
They can.
I think the fact that it is classical suggests that it is more niche.
It's not
than-
populist.
Correct, yeah.
And so the fact that everybody isn't watching all the time doesn't mean that it isn't wonderful and enjoyed.
Right. For someone who's so entrenched in your art and your passion for it, I'm going to ask you to say something to the viewers on this International Dance Day, and also to young students who are starry-eyed about their dance.
Well, I would say that the first thing is everyone should dance. Everybody right now, get up, put on some music, or listen to the music and sing it in your head and dance. Dance around the living room and have a wonderful time. And whenever you get a chance, dance. And for the youngsters who love their dance, go deeply into it. If you love it, enjoy it. But don't neglect your other things, because your life and how you live it is half your riyaz. It's not just about steps. It's not just about strength and flexibility. Developing your mind, studying other arts, studying music, architecture, color, design, theater, are all things that will make you a better dancer. So you need to grow as a human being. And then you have something to dance about.
That's wonderful. That's a very inspiring little bite you've sent out for all our viewers, and I'm sure it's left us all feeling a bit sort of, a bit like foot tappish, that we might really want to get out there and
Let's get up and
shake a
dance.
leg, as they say. Let's get up and dance. Thank you so much, Sharon, for
pleasure.
being
Thank
on the
you.
show today. It's been a significant interaction, and we're grateful for all your sharing.
I'm just thrilled that you invited me for this special day.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
नमी दानम के आखिर चू में दीदार में रक़सम, नमी दानम के आखिर चू में दीदार में रक़सम, मगर नाज़म के पेशे यार में रक़सम। यानी मैं नहीं जानता कि मैं क्यों नाच रहा हूँ, किसके दीदार में नाच रहा हूँ, किसकी मोहब्बत में नाच रहा हूँ, किसके इश्क में नाच रहा हूँ, मगर अब ये जान गया कि ये तू है जो तू मुझ में है और मुझे नचा रहा है। इसी मोहब्बत के साथ, इसी सरूर के साथ मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ कि पूरी दुनिया रक्स करे और आनंदित हो।
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नृत्य दिवस दरअसल इतना सुंदर पर्व है जहां विश्व की सभी नृत्य विधाओं और नृत्य परंपराओं को एक अवसर मिलता है कि वो फिर से याद करें अपनी उस पुरातन महान परंपरा को।